We're living in an epidemic of busyness. Do you find yourself often overwhelmed by a seemingly never-ending to-do list? In this episode, we're diving into why choosing ease over hustle is the key to wellness. I'll also be sharing the secrets to balancing the hustle with vital moments of rest and relaxation. Stress leaves clues, so let's use those clues to help our body return to a space of ease. Tune in for easy to implement steps that will help you to choose calmness over chaos. Let's get started, shall we? Well, hello, all you beautiful people, and welcome to Project Joyful, the podcast for health-centered leaders. I'm your host, Tracy Tutty, your medical herbalist, neuro-identity evolution practitioner, and high-performance coach. So hey, Project Joyful isn't just about being happy. It's about consciously creating a life you love. It's about remembering how to reconnect with your soul-centered joy. You know, that joy that comes from doing what you love, from living on purpose, and from being in a life that allows you to experience deep joy, moment by moment. It's also about bringing that joy into your workplace and using your skills as a health-centered leader to heal your team. So let's get started, shall we?
What's the opposite of being busy? Well, I Googled it, and guess what Google came back with? Being idle. Doesn't quite feel the same, does it? One is applauded, celebrated even. The other is held against you. And yet our bodies are crying out, feeding us symptoms of pain, fatigue, overwhelm, anxiety, begging in their own way for a medicinal dose of being idle. I couldn't do that. That would be lazy. What would the boss think? How would I get the kids to school? We live in a culture of proving oneself, of pulling our weight, with those choosing to pull more weight, simply carrying more and more and more, until one day we can't. We are the masters of adaptation. We take on more pressure without really noticing it. Our body just responds. The autonomic nervous system brings the sympathetic nervous system to the fore so that we can be focused, driven, we can get things done. Meanwhile, our immunity lowers, our digestive problems increase, and we have trouble sleeping. Based on what I see and what I'm told by my patients in clinic, it's not uncommon to experience anxiety on a daily basis. That is, until one day we make a different choice. I want less pressure. I want to enjoy family time. I want to start a hobby. Do that thing I used to enjoy as a child. Go to the beach. Play in the park. So we find a way to make it work. We seek out a role that's more flexible, or perhaps it's part-time. We re-divvy up the chores at home, tweak that roster, and then time, free time. The shoulders begin to move down from our ears. The garden looks a little more loved. We bake bread. We begin to feel different. There's space in your chest. You breathe a little slower and use a bit more of your lung capacity. Space. You realize this is what spaciousness feels like. Open, calm, easy. You start to feel uncomfortable. You're used to feeling jacked up, wired, yes, admittedly tired, but that's normal, isn't it? You're not sure you like this new feeling of ease. I mean, for a start, you've actually got space to feel stuff. So you start volunteering for things. Before you know it, you're on the PTA, you're organising fundraisers, you're doing things. That's more like it, says your mind. I feel pressure, I feel stress. I know what these states are. They're familiar. I like familiar. When it's familiar, I can predict the outcome, and predictability is safe. When I've got predictability, I know how things are going to turn out. Or do you? What happened? We got so used to feeling stressed, to living with constant pressure, that we mistook that for normal. Now there's a time for your sympathetic nervous system response. It's just not all the time. You see, our bodies are designed to ebb and to flow. It's a dance between focused and alert, the domain of the sympathetic nervous system, and rest and digest, the domain of the parasympathetic nervous system. Now the challenge is that, just like your car, you aren't meant to drive around in the same gear. I mean, you can, but eventually something will give. So what's the solution? Well, it's all about zinging and zagging. Sometimes we're focused, we're vigilant, we're fighting or fleeing, and sometimes we're at rest, we're relaxing, we're feeling ease in our body. Because we live in a culture of hustle and grind, as a general rule of thumb, choose to favour relaxation and rest over the hustle. And do it until it feels uncomfortable. And then do it a little bit more. So what does this antidote look like? Well, for example, it starts with clearly communicated boundaries. Begin with your terms of engagement, such as, well, there's going to be no work emails after 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock at night. And if you're a manager, lead by example and set this rule with your team. But more importantly, enforce it. Now that your evenings aren't filled with emails and quasi-work, what will you do with it? Now this is where the sneaky desire to fill that space with more stuff shows up. So be vigilant. What relaxing, fun things can you do with this time? Maybe read a book, play a game with the kids, go for a walk, kick a ball outside. De-stressing requires you to remove yourself physically, emotionally, and mentally from the stressor. So if you've got stress at work, the phone and the laptop stays in your work bag when you get home. Stress leaves clues. If you notice an unhelpful emotion, feel it. Don't pretend it's not there. And then trace it back to its triggering thought. And if you need to, write that thought down and put it in your work bag to be dealt with tomorrow. Create a feeling of safety in your body with some deep breathing. As you're breathing in, notice your belly expanding to receive your breath. How often do we thank our belly for expanding? Never. So let's do that now. Thank you, belly, for receiving my breath. Thank you for expanding to accommodate me. Now on that in-breath, just hold it for a moment and then slowly breathe out. And let your out-breath be longer than your in-breath so that you bring more relaxation into your body. One of the more common reasons for experiencing anxiety is actually physiological, and it's caused by shallow breathing. So shallow breathing is when you use the top parts of your lungs to breathe rather than your whole lung area. And you'll notice it by watching yourself in the mirror as you breathe. So if those shoulders are going up when you're breathing in, you're shallow breathing. And just lifting your shoulders makes you feel anxious. So practice diaphragm breathing to reset this postural habit. And keep an eye on those shoulders, down and away from your ears. Feeling ease, relaxation or peacefulness is a choice that's nothing to do with what's going on in your external world. For example, if you're running late for work, well, you can choose to respond to this event through the full body experience of agitation and frustration with a big dose of should'ves, could'ves, have-tos, or you can take a few deep breaths and do what needs to be done with ease and grace. You'll arrive at work at the same time, but one response will set you up for a day which starts with an elevated heart rate and the beginning of a tension headache, where everything seems to go wrong that day. The other response gets you to work with the creative juices flowing and a plan within you on how you'll get that day back on track. The choice, my friends, is entirely yours. Sending you lots of love. Bye for now. Hey, thanks for listening to today's podcast. Can I ask you a favour? If our conversation spoke to you today, could you please take a moment to leave a 5-star review? Your review will help people discover this podcast, and together we can create a world where there's even more love and more laughter. And if you want to hear more from the Project Joyful podcast, just click the subscribe button. Bye for now.